by Ruby Tuesday. Who could hang a name on you when you change with every new day? Still I'm gonna Ruby Sunday. Oh, I guess it's not my lucky day. Look, Rouselle, old darling, I know you're angry with people like me. I understand it. You know, the keyboard warriors, the commentators, the people who sit at home and dare to repudiate your Doctor Who. Oh, it's so much better in the old days, blah, blah, blah. Look at this shower of shit that they give us now, this ridiculously boring, woke rubbish, etc., etc. So I get it. I get that must be very frustrating for you to hear, but really, to craft an entire episode designed to attack people like me, Rouselle, I confess, I was hurt. A little bit. Well, alright, I wasn't really hurt. I mean, I've got a very thick skin, but there'll be people out there who would be upset. And I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, no. Lucky Day wasn't about, the people who don't like modern Doctor Who. It was about the anti-vaxxers. It was about the people who think that, the Sandy Hook is a hoax, and, Lee Rigby, the soldier who was murdered by Islamic extremists in Woolwich, South East London, never existed. Those sorts of people. And it was about those sorts of people, wasn't it? But it was also about people who don't like modern Doctor Who. And what a brilliant way to do it, if I may say so. I'll give you credit for this. To have a premise whereby you have somebody who kind of was given a sort of taste of it as a child and sort of wanted to like it, but found that he just couldn't be sort of properly, couldn't induct himself into that world for whatever reason, so became kind of embittered and angry that this wasn't for him, and that the people who liked this stuff didn't seem to like people like him. So it becomes vehemently anti that thing, even though deep down he just wants to be part of it. I can't relate to that, Rouselle. I can't relate to that on any level. But look, Lucky Day had an interesting idea, didn't it? I mean, it wasn't written by you, by the way. Let's get that out of the way. It's written by somebody called, checks notes, Pete McTighe, whose career started on Neighbours, the Australian soap. Then he wrote 10 episodes of EastEnders, allegedly. I don't know which 10. Not, I imagine, 10 of the standouts.
Nice seeing you, Ruby. I'd love to catch up, but I have to take my mom to chemo.
And then wrote for Chris Chibnall's back in that era that we in the Doctor Who commentariat community choose to deny. But you must have liked what he did, because you brought him back to write Lucky Day, in which the Doctor patronised a small boy with a 50p piece. A fantasist, indeed, a dreamer. "I've just seen a man in a blue box," he said to his mother, only to be slapped away, though admittedly it was New Year's Eve, and told, "Oh, I'm sick of all of your stories and your lies, Conrad. You're always telling tales, ain't you?" Well, that marked our card, didn't it? But anyway, Conrad grows up with the 50p put into a pendant around his neck. He tracks Ruby down, having seen her with the Doctor about 15, 16 years later. And so we think that he's a Doctor Who file, an enthusiast. I mean, he's seen the Doctor in 2 separate time periods. He's seen the TARDIS dematerialise. So he knows that the Doctor is real, and he knows that time travel is real, because he's seen the same man in 2 locations at 2 points in his life looking exactly the same. Right? And yet, the big twist of this episode, of course, there's a little middle part in which it looks like it's going to be a very conventional episode, in which, one of the Doctor's companions goes out with some sort of spineless, edgeless creep. You remember Danny Pink? Danny Pink and Clara, you remember that? Did he go out with Clara? I'm pretty sure he did. You see, the memory fades, doesn't it? But we all hated Danny Pink, didn't we? And we all enjoyed him becoming a Cyberman. Conrad is one of those sort of drippy, boring, am I your boyfriend kind of blokes. And we despise him, naturally, for that reason. Because we think that he's feckless and boring, and so. But Ruby seems to like him, God bless her. But the big twist in the episode is that he is not what he appears to be. He is, in fact, the head of an organisation called Think Tank, a conspiracy InfoWars-like organisation that is dedicated to the destruction of UNIT. Now, we all hate UNIT, so to some degree we can relate to Conrad. We understand why he despises UNIT. UNIT is a very self-serious military organisation stocked with a lot of really boring people. And we saw many of them in this episode. I'm afraid I include Kate Lethbridge Stewart, who I've always found to be a pretty tedious character. The robot there, Gigabyte, was there, whatever it's called, and so was the woman in the wheelchair, and so, who has got machine guns in a wheelchair spokes or whatever, and the boring security guard was there. The kid, Jimmy, wasn't there. And I know that's not his name, but it may as well be. Dr. Z, I don't know who. He wasn't there. Maybe he was away. And neither was the Doctor. The Doctor was completely absent from the episode for the most part. Sort of bookended it. But anyway, we'll come back to that. So, turns out that Conrad is the head of this organisation, and they're driven allegedly by the politics of resentment. At least the members are. The members genuinely don't believe that UNIT is a real thing. It's just a sort of, I don't know, an elaborate front. Why you would have such an organisation if you didn't need it is very hard to understand. The Earth's been subject to about 1 billion alien invasion incidents, particularly in the New Who era, and indeed beforehand. So why wouldn't you believe it when these events are so public and so well documented? But you can understand, if you haven't been directly involved in any of these things, you might not believe in all of that stuff. But the one man who would surely believe it would be Conrad, because he's seen the TARDIS, and he's seen the Doctor dematerialise, and he's seen the Doctor in 2 different time periods. But he doesn't allegedly believe in any of it. It's just, oh no, it's all fantasy, and all the adventures you say you went on, it's all rubbish, and so on. So I don't believe any of it. Blah, 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 blah. Down with unit, blah, 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 blah. All the monsters are special effects, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't really make sense that he should think that.
Remember when I was talking openly about the coronavirus and the corruption during the coronavirus era, and how the media lied to us and shamed us and tried to control us, how companies like Pfizer and Moderna made record profits, how the UK inquiry into COVID was tepid, how people like Anthony Fauci ought to be regarded as criminals, how we have to have an open debate about the causes of war, whether they're the Middle Eastern wars or wars between Russia and Ukraine. It's interesting to me that once I was on the radar of the deep state and many of their affiliates within media, because the media and the government are not separate entities. The media and the institutions of power are not separate entities. We know that now. We'll start off by looking at the United Kingdom. If you are a UK resident, how do you feel in the UK right now? How do you feel about the rape gang crisis? How do you feel that there's going to be no inquiry into the rape gang crisis in the UK? But there is time and evidently resources to look at alleged incidents, in my case.
But as a sort of a clumsy, clunky metaphor for people like me who don't believe in New who think that New Who has by and large been a waste of time and has failed to be truthful in the sense that it's not a true representation of Doctor Who. It's not an accurate rendering of the reality of that universe as we see it. And when I say we, I'm making some assumptions about you. You say I hear your voices in my head, and they say to me, "Yeah, I agree with you, Ed. You're right." Okay, good. Let's just carry on with that assumption. The story only really makes sense in that context. I mean, Conrad is still a denier when he's bitten by a real shriek, a space wolf or whatever, or an interdimensional animal. And he's still a bastard even when he's had a dressing down from the Doctor at the end. Clearly he has a lot of resentment towards the Doctor and so on. Doesn't like this iteration of the Doctor, doesn't like Unit, doesn't like all of the modern day production values. Hey, your special effects are getting better, blah 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 blah. All of this stuff. It's you, Rouselle, saying "fuck you," isn't it? To the haters, the part of the audience that is watching, which increasingly is larger than the part of the audience that's watching for fun, who dislike the programme and think that it's on its last legs precisely because it's lost sight of the things that made it an enjoyable watch in the first place. Well, point taken, Rouselle. I hear what you're saying. I just think that you've got it spectacularly wrong, as ever. But at least the episode gave us a bit of food for thought. I mean, it didn't make a lot of sense. I made a few notes, and I'm going to read them to you now. Kate's fucking one of the senior guards from Unit. Well, why? Why would she do that? I know it gets lonely at Unit HQ, but he's a one-dimensional grunt. I mean, what do they bond over? And you don't ever sleep with a boss. That's a massive no-no. Conrad had a man on the inside, a man who actually worked for UNIT. Why would someone who works for UNIT day to day and therefore knows that everything they do is real join an anti-UNIT conspiracy theorist movement? I mean, if I know that the thing that this organisation against is real, I'm not going to be tempted by them, am I? What am I tempted by exactly? Maybe this guy, there's another layer to this guy, Jordan. Maybe Jordan just hated the waste and the bureaucracy within UNIT. Do we keep having to travel at taxpayers' expense to this base on the moon when we've got some offices here? Can't we just have a sandwich lunch here instead of travelling to the moon base? No, it's Janet's meeting, and Janet likes the moon base, Jordan. But it's going to cost each one of us about £3 million to go there. Claim it's all right. You just claim it on the system, but keep your receipts. Conrad's friends, in an attempt to trick UNIT into showing up, managed to pass themselves off as authentic shrieks, authentic space wolves. But the men in question and women in question had never seen a shriek before. All they had was Conrad's fleeting glimpse of these creatures from a few years previously. Yet based on that, they were able to create costumes that allowed them to look realistically like alien space wolves. Now, I was uncomfortable with this for a number of reasons, other than the fact that it's silly and doesn't make sense. I was uncomfortable with it because I thought the thing about Doctor Who and its creatures and monsters is it requires us to suspend our disbelief. Whatever we actually see on screen, we have to believe that to the people within the universe of the story looks like something that would be real and therefore terrifying, right? Whether it's made of it's an elaborate animatronic, or whether it's a guy wrapped in bubble wrap, it's still got to be frightening to the people within the story. Now, once you start to make sort of meta-like commentary on the quality of the visual effects and the quality of the monsters, that's just another step towards undermining the show. Don't you think? You see, Rouselle, you see how it's you, not people like me, that slowly but surely erode Doctor Who as a viable entity. There's a lot of that in this series, isn't there? Just there wasn't the last. A lot of winking at the audience, a lot of, fourth wall breaks. My God, in the Ring-a-Ding episode, as we're now calling it, we even met the fans. What's going on, Rouselle? Why are you so hell-bent on undermining Doctor Who as a dramatic entity that exists in its own universe? Why does our world and our universe keep having to intrude on this cherished bit of fiction that we like to enjoy and want to enjoy? It's destructive, don't you see? It's sort of postmodern in character, in that it sort of assumes that everything, all of Doctor Who, is just a kind of a resource to be plundered and asset stripped and satirically commented on. But if you do that, it's a bit of a creative dead end. If you don't cherish anything, if you don't cherish any myths, if you don't cherish the integrity of the fiction, you've lost something, haven't you? Haven't you? Wish you and Pete McTighe had a chat about that before you wrote this shit. Ruby outed the Doctor as gay, as is her wont, said to Conrad, who won't be interested in a pretty attractive 20-year-old girl like me more than a sort of a lifeless lunk like you. Except, of course, the Doctor we know wouldn't be interested in either of them, would he? Because he's a sophisticated alien. He's a man of a different species from a higher civilization who would look at them both in the Doctor Who that we know and love as if they were stray cats. I confess that in order for this episode to work at all, Ruby had to be plausibly attracted to Conrad, and as Conrad had no personality and wore a 50p piece around his neck, that for me broke the episode. Its plausibility was shot long before he became this sort of uber conspiracy theorist. And another disadvantage of this being a single episode was, of course, all of that all of the transition from him being a sort of keyboard warrior and tweeter to these full-scale riots against UNIT took place in about 2 minutes, and so there was no time really for us to register the progression or sort of understand how he becomes so successful in convincing a country that's constantly under attack from alien forces that it had all been a mass delusion. But, I know, it's a little comment on the post-Trumpian, post-truther world. I get it. We'll believe anything, won't we, these days, is what you want to say. But really what you want to say is, who haters get fucked. We're going to carry on doing what we're doing, even if it leads to the destruction of the thing we say we love. Conrad lived, unfortunately, only to be let out by Mrs. Flood at the end. So maybe, unfortunately, we'll see Conrad again at the end of the series and so on as one of Mrs. Flood's people. She's there to undermine the Doctor in any way. Who is she? Probably the Rani. We'll find out. Do we care? Will it matter? I mean, if the show's going to immediately end after the reveal, it's never going to pay off in any dramatic sense, is it? So what's the point? I laughed once when the little old lady said of her dog, Biscuit got the fright of his life. Poor old Biscuit. What would Biscuit make of the critical backlash to this episode? If you own the real Biscuit, do tell me. So that's it, kids. Next week the Doctor's in Africa or something. Because this show's a little bit on the nose. Let's find out what happens as yet another precious episode in what we imagine to be the final series of Doctor Who is wasted. Until then, I'm Dr. McElvoy. It's not my real name. Alright? Au revoir.